Hello, hello, welcome. So, today we are talking about notes, scales, chords, essentially music theory for beginning singers. I'll try to focus on only the things that you really need to know. I do want to point out that I have a lot of resources shared in the description of this video. So, if you've been sitting here waiting for the lesson to start, you might refresh the page and then see more links populate. So, we'll talk about first just the difference between pitch and rhythm, since that's the two basic things that every note has. So, if you hear about a musical note, that's a little bit non-specific. Every note has both pitch, meaning the highness or lowness of the note, and rhythm, meaning the duration of the note, how long we hold it for. But oftentimes people will use pitch and note interchangeably. So they'll say, sing this note, rather than saying, sing this pitch. Um, so I want you to open up. Hi. I want you to open up virtualpiano.net. It's one of the links, but I'll also grab it and put it in the live chat here. All right. So in another window, please open that up. You might have to close some pop up in the very beginning, but then you'll see a keyboard on your screen. The default is set up so that you can play the piano using your laptop or desktop's keyboard, but we don't want that. So we are going to click Key Assist. So across the top of the piano, you'll see Record, Key Assist, Metronome, Sound, Style, Save. We want Key Assist. So click that. A menu will pop up. Then click Note Labels. The default for me is that note labels are off, but if you click that and it'll toggle to note labels on, then you can X out of that menu and now you're looking at a keyboard with those pitches labeled. And this is really, really important for beginners, musicians, singers, everyone, to understand where these pitches are on the keyboard. So, first, we have a combination of letters and numbers. The musical alphabet goes from A to G and then it starts over. So, if you find any A on the keyboard, find any A. If you walk to the right on the keyboard, you are going higher in pitch. If you walk to the left on the keyboard, you're going lower in pitch. So the highest notes on the piano are at the very, very right end, and the lowest notes on the piano are at the very, very left end. Okay, so right goes higher, left goes lower. Find any A. For example, I'm going to find A3. And if you walk through just looking at the white keys, you'll see A3, B3, C4, D4, E4. We'll talk about that in a second. E4, F4, G4, and then A4. So that musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, then it repeats A, B, C, D, E, F, G, on and up the keyboard. The octave numbers are the letters. Sorry, ignore what I just said. The octave numbers start over at every C. So notice now find, for example, C3, C3, D3, E3, F3, G3, A3, B3. We could say that all of those pitches are in the third octave on the piano. And if this was a full piano, the very two bottom pitches would be A0 and B0. And then the first C kind of denotes the first full octave on the piano. So that's C1. For me, as I'm on my laptop here, it starts at C2, which is this pitch. And by the way, this is probably a given, but if you click the key on your screen, it will sound that pitch. Okay, so the lowest one that I see right now is C2. Okay, D2, E2, F2, G2, A2, B2, C3. That's the start of the third octave. To give you a little bit of context, C3 is a pitch that most low voice types, basses, baritones, tenors, all of you will be fairly comfortable singing that pitch. Below C3, if your range extends below that, and this is also a good way for you to determine what your vocal range is, your comfortable range, you can just kind of go one pitch at a time and see where your voice is comfortable. And when it starts getting muddy or pressed or uncomfortable, then you can say, okay, I'm not going to include that in my range. But this is how we identify a singer's overall range is just walking through the piano, having them sing on an open bow, and seeing what's comfortable for them. So a tenor typically is pretty comfortable on that C3, but they start to lose quality as they go lower than that. Whereas a baritone or a bass, their voice is just going to stay rich and resonant below that C3. Um, anyways, walking up C3, D3, E3, F3, G3, A3, B3, C4. C4 is what we call middle C. And if you're on a full sized keyboard or even one on the computer, like we're looking at here, C4 is about midway. It kind of cuts the piano in half, not exactly, but close enough. It's the C most in the middle of the keyboard. So if anyone ever says middle C, they mean C4. Um, just kind of talking about ranges for 1 second, since you have the piano right in front of you. E2, find E2 all the way to E4. So that's the E above middle C or C4. E2 to E4 is an overall general range for a singer that we would call a bass. So Johnny Cash is a good example of a well-known bass voice type, very deep and rich. A baritone voice, I didn't mention the black keys yet, and I will. um, and yes, can we replay this live after again? Absolutely. And by the way, NGC, you can also look up virtualpiano.net on any other so you could look on your phone. Could If you're a musician and a piano app would benefit you, then you could also download a piano app. And Miriam and Linda, I'm sorry if I'm moving a little bit fast. We do have a lot to cover in an hour, but I'll move as slowly as I can. So I'm just giving an overview for different vocal ranges. A baritone would be pretty comfortable singing from G sharp 2 to about G sharp 4. A tenor's overall range, we think of that as typically C3 to C5. An alto, I'm an alto mezzo soprano, E3 or F3 as their bottom note to E5 or F5 as their top note. Mezzo sopranos A3 to A5 and sopranos C4 to C6. And just a quick note on vocal range and voice types. Most voices will be able to sing a wider range than that. So, for example, if you are a voice like mine, you may be able to sing lower than E3 or F3, and you may be able to sing higher than E5 or F5. But that range is the range in which a singer is most comfortable and sounds their best. So that's really how we identify voice type. It's not necessarily by your overall range, it's by something we call your tessitura, which is the narrower range in which your voice sounds and feels its best. Great questions. Is that tenor C5 connected or head voice slash falsetto? Maduro holdings, I would say that C5 being connected, let's say belted or in a nice strong mix, is a bit of a tenor money note, if you will. So that's not going to be the case right away. If you are naturally a tenor and you're pretty comfortable from C3 to C5, at the beginning of your training, that C5 ooh, is going to be head voice or falsetto. Over time, most tenors will be able to stretch to that C5 with some connection, and they'll be able to sing a little bit higher than that in their head voice or falsetto. However, that C5 is not used in a ton of contemporary music. It will be used by some rock singers and some really high voices. Think, Bruno Mars or The Weeknd or Sam Smith. But in general, I would say the pitches that I see more often, tenors needing to sing connected, would more be in the A and B flat range. If you can get an A and a B flat pretty connected, an example I worked on yesterday with a student is In My Blood by Shawn Mendes. He sings over and over, "It isn't in my blood," F to A. And then a little bit later in the song, he sings the B flat, "I need somebody now." And all of that we want in a nice, strong connected sound. So I would say you don't need to worry if you don't have that C5, but a lot of tenors work toward that as their money note. And then Jonah's asking if I reach G sharp 4 by now, but I'm a tenor. Am I a baritone for now? Oh, that's such a good question. So I would answer that by saying you might be more comfortable with baritone repertoire than you would with tenor repertoire. Again, the reality for most singers is that you can sing a wider range than that one specific voice type. But the question, Jonah, would be, can you sing as low as a baritone or not? And when I'm identifying a singer's voice type, by the way, I don't really like to identify voice types because I think voices are really flexible. I don't identify as just an alto. I identify as an alto slash mezzo soprano, depending on the song and the genre. But anyways, Jonah, that's the real question. I would not classify you as a baritone if you're not comfortably singing down to like an A2 or a G sharp 2. In order to be a true baritone, you would need those notes comfortably and strongly. So more likely, if you're comfortable higher, but you just don't have that high range yet, it could be that you're just a lower tenor or you're a tenor who's working on opening up those low notes. But that can take time. And that's also why I don't love voice typing singers, is because if you come day one to a voice teacher asking what's my voice type, chances are we won't be able to tell. Um, think about it this way. If you came to, a dance instructor and asked them, "Will I ever be able to do the splits?" They wouldn't be able to tell you. They could take a look at how flexible you are today and they could say, "Ooh, if you can't even touch your toes, that might be difficult to do the splits." Um, if your hands are flat on the ground, that's not as big of a stretch. But can they tell you for sure you will never be able to do the splits unless you have some like impingement or other inhibition, anatomically? No. In the same way, I could not tell a singer, "This is the highest note that you will be able to sing." I wouldn't do that. But what those vocal ranges can do is give us a reasonable goal. So let's say I'm a singer. Let's say my voice is a little bit higher. So say I'm more in the like soprano or mezzo soprano range, and my voice is really comfortable on C4. But by the time I get to A3, that note right there, I start to lose power and quality and I start to get a little uncomfortable. That tells me probably I'm not an alto. Probably. Um, the our low range extension is a little bit more limited than our high range extension because if we think about it, your vocal folds, in order to sing lower pitches, they get shorter and thicker. And once something is its length, you can't shorten it. You can't squish your vocal folds to make them shorter, but you can stretch them like a rubber band. So think about a rubber band. You can't make that rubber band have less material, but you could stretch it, stretch it, stretch it. So that's why we have a bit more flexibility singing higher and extending our range up higher than we do lower. NGC is asking, is it okay if I strain in vocal warm-ups? Sometimes I feel some vocal exercises are higher than my pitch, and when I begin with the same pitch of the coach, I cannot continue when getting higher. NGC, I would say strain is never something that we want. What I would ask you to do first is to swap out whatever you're singing on with another syllable, vowel, or configuration. So, for example, let's say you're singing a warm up that's pretty wide range, and the exercise is something like a ma 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 ma, and let's say you're starting to strain on that. The first thing I would ask you to do is try that on an ooh. Ooh. If that's still straining, try it on something semi-closed like a hum or a lip trill. My personal favorite when things are getting higher than I'm comfortable with is I switch to an NG sound, like the end of the word sing. I really like that for my high head voice range. So that would be my first step is can you sing those pitches but in a different way? Um, and then I would also ask, who is this warm up intended for? Is there a specific range or voice type that this warm up is intended for? Or is it a general warm up? And that's kind of the issue with general warm ups that I run into as well as a voice teacher is that it's difficult to design a vocal warm up that is going to serve every single voice type equally well. That's why here on the channel, I have a warm up for sopranos, mezzos, altos, tenors, baritones, and basses. And I keep it within the comfortable range or tessitura of those voice types. And when I'm teaching lessons for a more general audience, what I've been doing lately is I'll say, okay, low voice types, you're going to start here, and then I'll let them know when it's okay for them to drop out, or when they might need to change something. So, if you find that that's a recurring issue for you, I would do a little bit of research to determine what your comfortable voice type is today, understanding that that can change and it's totally fine. Um, and then look for warm ups for that specific voice type. So, do a little test where you figure out your vocal range. If it says you're a tenor, then go for tenor warm-ups. And then when you are uncomfortable or feel like you're straining, try a different vowel, try a different configuration like a hum, an NG, a lip trill. Um, See if that's easier for you. And then what I'll do if things are getting really high is I will just think the highest pitch without any pressure to sing it. So, for example, if we take that same exercise from before and we're singing ooh, and I'm starting to get concerned about that high note. Ooh, ooh. First off, I'm going to let my vowel shift a little bit. I might drop my jaw. I might let my mouth widen slightly. Ooh. Listen to the difference. It's really, really subtle, but I'm letting that vowel widen. Ooh. And if I keep it in that really round ooh shape, ooh, you can hear there's something weird is happening. It doesn't sound as good or clear or open. So that would be my first thing is make some changes. Um, See if it works better for you on a slightly different vowel, a different modification of that vowel. If all else fails, switch to something semi-closed. And then if you get to a point where that top note is not coming out, so if it sounds something like ooh, and it's just air on the top there, that's okay. That is totally fine. It was a game changer when I had a teacher tell me that. The teacher was Gerald White. I love him. He teaches in LA. And he said, just think that high note. Ooh, ooh. So that I didn't have to drop out of the exercise entirely. I was still working on the notes going up to it. But just thinking that note took the pressure off. When you have all this pressure on yourself that I must sing every note, what ends up happening a lot of times is we squeeze and we strain and we tense up to squeeze that note out. Ooh, No, I don't wanna train that. I don't wanna reinforce that sound and that way of producing sound. Um, so I would way rather have you as a student just think the note or give yourself permission for just air to come out, knowing that that won't hurt you. Just air passing through your vocal folds, "Ooh," that's fine. That will not hurt you. Squeezing, "Ooh," in order to make this, not very pretty note come out, um, that that's a bad habit to get into. Um Anyways, okay, Sheila's asking, I'm not sure of my vocal type. However, when I get to A4, my voice starts to screech or it breaks. Should I start going to my head voice around G4? I can get to C5, but it's a strain. Okay, so Sheila, I look forward to working with you very soon. Sheila has a lesson booked because that G A flat A range is extremely, Jonah, you get it. Um, that's that is the point at which you're transitioning into your mix or middle voice. So we'll work together to see why your voice is cracking or straining there, and then we'll try out some different sounds to see what works for you to retain a little bit of that chest voice strength, while also stretching using a little bit more head voice resonance. If you need to flip to head voice, that's okay. So if you're doing an exercise and you're Sheila and you're going mum 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 mum, and then that A4 mum 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 mum, and it cracks, that's okay. I would honestly rather have you flip mum 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 mum. I would rather have you flip than shout, to get that A4. But really where we need to go is training that mix or middle balance. And typically when a singer has an issue like you're describing, typically we go with really bright and bratty sounds. That helps us to keep a little bit more of that chest voice, you know, engaged. And that's the ideal, is that we're able to keep some of that chest voice function through A flat, A, B flat, B, even C, um, and sometimes beyond. But yeah, we'll work it out. Vishal is saying if any song is in any key, then every vocal will be on key pitch only. Oh, I understand what you're asking. Okay. Vishal is asking, and we do need to get back to music theory. So back to music theory very, very soon. Let me just answer a few quick questions. Vishal, we're gonna get back to that. Yuande is saying, I'm in San Diego, which I am too. Do you have an in-person group class or one-on-one? Not in person at this time. Unfortunately, I do teach online, and I do have group options. So I'm gonna give you information about that right now. If you go to this page, you'll be able to book a one-on-one lesson with me, but there's also a group and less expensive options through Patreon. If you And the link is there as well. You can see those different options. But yeah, it's remote for the time being. I will let you know if we go back to in person. Um, Okay. Yeah, and NGC, I totally understand. That's kind of the tricky thing about learning with online lessons is that feedback component. So if you're a 30-day singer student and you're a full access user, then there's feedback each week with an instructor, and then of course you can check out the other options there that I linked. Okay, so getting back to music theory, Yewande was asking, or sorry, not Yewande, Vishal was asking if a song is in a certain key, um, will the melody stay in that key or will other notes be used? So let us return to our virtual piano. And I'm going to quickly overview of what a key is. So a key is just a collection of pitches. If we play, for example, from C4 to C5, only white keys. This is what that sounds like. Sounds very familiar because that's a major scale. If you're familiar with the sound of music, do re mi fa sol la ti do, the Do a deer or do re mi song is basically just teaching a major scale. So a key is a collection of pitches on which a song is based. And typically, when we're talking about a key, it gives us information about which pitches belong, which pitch is kind of serves as our home base for that song. It gives us information about the scale that's attached to that key. So, most of the time, beginners will start with the key of C. Key of C means that C is your home base pitch. So if I sing the song Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear someone, happy birthday to you. And I land on that C, and that's my home base. I just sang that in the key of C. I could sing it in a different key, but anyways, key of C. C is my home base. Um, the key of C, we have something called a key signature, which tells us about these black keys, which now I'll talk about. The key signature tells you, are there any sharps or flats in this key, and how many? Which are they? The key of C is the easiest to start with because there are no sharps or flats, meaning there are no black keys. It's all regular, natural C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Um, a key like G, for example. So if I start and end on G, I'm going to play a G major scale. But listen, I'm going to play G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you're going to hear it. It's not going to sound quite right. Do you hear that? The second to last note didn't sound quite right. That was not a major scale. So the key of G, in order to sound correct, has one sharp. It's F sharp. So this time I'm going to play G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And you're going to hear how, it sounds much better. Same thing, we can get even more complex. Let's go to the key of E. The key of E has 4 sharps. So, in order to sound correct, what you know the major scale to be, we have to play 4 sharps. Those sharps are F sharp, G sharp, C sharp, and D sharp. So, I'm going to play E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. So that's our key signature. If you look in the video description, I have key signatures listed. I have major scales and minor scales, so you can do a deep dive into this. Also, musictheory.net. It's completely free and it's such a great resource. You can just start from the top of their lessons and you can make your way through. Um, anyways, okay. So we have different key signatures for basically almost every key on the keyboard. I want to touch on these black keys really quickly with you. The black keys on virtualpiano.net are listed as sharps. However, we can also list them as flat. So you'll see, for example, C sharp 4, D sharp 4. There are what we call enharmonic equivalents of each of those pitches. So the note that you see labeled C sharp 4 on virtual piano, we could also call D flat, and it's the same pitch. So the black keys, they can be called sharp, they can be called flat. We call it sharp by moving up a half step. We call it flat by moving down a half step. So stay with me. C4, if I move up a half step is just the very next key on the keyboard touching the one you're on. So C4 up a half step or a semitone, I get C sharp 4. If I go the opposite direction, D4, and I'm moving down 1 semitone or half step, I would get D flat 4. But again, it's the same pitch, the same key on the keyboard. That's either spelled C sharp or D flat. I'm not going to get too much further into that. Just know that it's the same pitch. You would spell it a different way depending on the key that you're in. So Vishal was asking, if I have a song in the key of C or the key of G, whatever key it is the melody going to stay entirely in that key? So, for example, if I have a song in the key of C, will the melody only use the pitches C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then, C, since that scale will repeat? No. So, Vishal, you can use pitches outside of that key. You can use chords outside of that key. Um, but if it's a very simple song, it will stay within the key. But there are lots of examples from pop and rock where there will be a pitch used outside of the key, and it sounds good as long as the chord supports that. Um, so the key of the song also tells us when it's connected to a specific melody, it tells us the range as well. Um, and this is where it becomes important for you as a singer to understand the key and the range of a song. Um, I have this working list of songs with their key and their range listed, and I'm sharing it like bit by bit over on TikTok. So if you're on there, you already know what I'm talking about. But here's an example. Um, Let me find a song that lots of people know. How about Drops of Jupiter? So Drops of Jupiter is in the key of C. And actually, for Vishal and others who are wondering, that's a good example of a song that uses some pitches outside of the key. But, anyways, in that key, now that she's back in the atmosphere with drops of Jupiter in her hair. That note right there, that A3 is basically the lowest that that song goes. It might dip down to the G3. And then the highest pitch in the song, "Tell me, did you sail across?" That's an A4. That's the highest that the melody goes. So in the key of C, and by the way, you can determine the key of a song by Googling it. But the best resource, in my opinion, is or the most accurate, if you go to karaoke-version.com, and you don't need to purchase any tracks, just look up a song that you're interested in. So here it is. So let's look up, okay, Easy on Me, for example. It's already up because it's popular right now. If I click on that, it gives me some information about the song. Oh, oh no. It automatically started playing. So Easy on Me, it says it's this track that I have the option to purchase, but I'm not going to. It's the same as the original tempo, 71 beats per minute or BPM, in the same key as the original, and it says F. Okay, so now you know the key of Easy on Me. It's in the key of F. And you can determine what that means for yourself, the key signature, the scale, all of that business. If you listen to the song and then analyze, okay, what's the lowest note that she sings? There ain't no gold in this river. I don't know if it goes much lower than that note. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And then go easy on me, babe. And then later on in the bridge, I had good intentions. I think that's the highest that it goes. Anyways, so you can listen to the song. You can see, okay, in the key of F, now I know that's the key of this song. The lowest note is this one, C4. The highest note, I think, is D5. So that gives you information if you want to change the key of the song. Um, Not every song in its original key is going to fit every voice. And oftentimes I'm on YouTube looking up a song and then either higher key karaoke or lower key karaoke. So if that's you, if you really love a song and you want to sing it, and you it's not a comfortable fit, that could be a good thing for you to try. First is just looking up higher or lower, depending on whether you think it's too high or low for your voice. But then you could get even more specific and you could determine, okay, in this key, this is the range. If I want to put it in my comfortable range, I would need to shift it by this many semitones. And yes, this is a little bit of math, but it's a lot of music is math. Jonah was asking a few questions before we jump back in. Do we lose experience if we don't practice for 1 or 2 days, like Saturdays or Sundays? In my experience, no, Jonah. I think you will be completely fine, and it's actually a good idea to give yourself a rest. In my experience, if you take a break of a few weeks or longer, that's when you might notice a difference. But that's the great thing about singing and many skills like this is to return to singing. It's never like you're starting from scratch. You just might feel that you're a little bit rusty, that you don't have maybe the strength or the stamina or the range that you did before. But you're not starting from scratch, and you should be taking breaks. That's good for you. NGC is saying, is there a website that like scans our voice and tells us if we're compatible with a specific song or not? I wish there was. That's a great idea. Um, I I try to compile as many resources I can for you to make those decisions for yourself. But what it comes down to, honestly, the easiest solution is singing along with the song and determining, does this sound and feel good for my voice? If it does, there's your answer. If it doesn't, there's your answer. Like, unless you have a way to work through that, so what I'll normally ask my students to do is bring a song that you feel is just outside of your comfort zone. Like, you think you could do it, but you need a little bit of help to get there. Um, what's not great is if you choose a song that you can't even hit the notes. Like, they are either too low or too high for you to sing. A lot of what we work on in voice lessons is getting those notes to have the tone quality or the strength, whatever, that you want them to. But if I choose a song, for example, if I choose a song from The Phantom of the Opera and it goes higher than I can sing, I've just shot myself in the foot. If I can't sing those pitches in a vocal warm up, putting them in the context of a song isn't going to make them any easier to sing. So, if you're looking for a song to sing, you should be able to at least sing the pitches, like sing along with the singer. Maybe they won't have the strength or the tone quality that you want, and that's something to work on. Um, but that should be your starting point, that at least those pitches are accessible. I've had teachers in the past, for example, when I took classical lessons in college, I would have a teacher, or I had a teacher who would choose songs for me that she knew I couldn't sing, and she thought it would be motivation. Like, well, I know you can't sing this G5 right now. I can now, but I couldn't then. Um, and she was like, but just doing it over and over or trying to do it over and over will somehow get you there. It didn't. It didn't. All it did was stress me out. Um, and those notes did not become easier in that context. Those notes only became easier when I did what I was sharing with you before, is giving myself permission to sing on a different vowel, sing it in a different way, to not make sound, to just think the pitch, to let just air come out. So I did not expand my range by choosing songs that I couldn't sing, by choosing songs that were outside of my range. Um, I have, however, strengthened certain parts of my voice where I can sing the note, but I can't sing it with that strength or quality that I want. Then, putting that into my routine did help. Anyways, um, So I do have sorry, to get back to your question, NGC, about figuring out your voice type, figuring out what songs are good for your voice. Let me see what I have in that department. Let me see. Okay. So if you go to this website right here, I've compiled just a list of free resources. And if you look toward the bottom, there's a heading that says song work, how to choose songs, considering your range, registration, and style, how to work on songs, singingcarrots.com. You can find songs to sing in a specific range. And then I have two karaoke channels on YouTube that I like that often post songs in higher and lower keys. Um, the other resource that I want to drop for you is a short lesson on changing the key of a song or finding the best key. Um, so let me see if I can find that quickly for you. Yeah. Okay. So here that is as well. Um, Tyler was asking, so if a melody is in E major, doesn't that mean you have to start on E, then go to a higher note? No, absolutely not. Good question, Tyler. So let's take the song, for example, let's take the Star Spangled Banner in the key of E. If we were to sing that, oh, say, can you see? It actually does a really good job of kind of highlighting that key, but it starts on a B, then G sharp, then E, and then it walks back up G sharp, B, E. Oh, say, can you see? And then it goes higher than that. But yeah, the key of the song does not tell you what note you need to start on. The only caveat there is that oftentimes you're gonna land on the pitch that corresponds with the key. So taking that same song, and the home of the brave, that's an E. We landed on an E. It's in the key of E. Um, but you could start on any pitch that you wanted to as long as it sounds good with the chord. Um, Cal was asking, can you do whistle tones if you happen to let your voice box flip? Cal, you cannot flip your voice box. So your voice box or larynx uh, in your throat, it's going to stay in that position. The only thing similar to flipping that could happen is tilting of that cartilage. But there is no flipping happening. Um, Whistle tone is achieved not maybe there's laryngeal tilt happening, but typically we think of whistle as just the front of your vocal folds are vibrating together and the back are open, letting extra air through. So that's the main difference between, say, head voice and whistle tone. But yeah, your larynx is staying in the same spot. um, and Shone is asking, I have a problem with my tone. It's in between bass and baritone. Whenever I try to jump from chest voice to head voice, my voice changes into a totally different tone. Is there anything I could do about that? So I would say Shone or Shone, your tone is going to be different when you move from your chest voice into your head voice. The quality of the sound, the strength of the sound is going to be different, and that's okay. The way to start blending those registers together is working on your mix. And you can check out some of the other live lessons and shorter lessons on mixing to see what works for you. But I would say in general, it's it's a good thing. It's a good thing that your chest voice sounds different from your head voice. It gives us variety, in our sound. A good example of that of, um, a male singer using their head voice in a really cool stylistic way would be, let me see if I can find it real quick. Oh, yeah, okay. I forgot the name of the song. So, Wicked Game by Chris Isaak. This is a, very bassy, baritone type singer who flips into head voice, and it sounds really, really cool. So check out that song. It might inspire you that your head voice having a different tonal quality to it, and it's a good thing. It's good. And Cal is asking, does it hurt your voice if you do whistle tone? It should not. And if it does, don't. Not every voice, I know some voice teachers will tell you everyone can do whistle. In my experience, some voices access whistle a lot more easily than others. So, particularly if you have a pretty low or heavy voice, um, you know, for me, whistle is not important to me. It's not something that I work on, it's not something that I access easily. So I just don't. But if you're a person with a higher or a lighter voice, you'll probably have more success and you can go for it. But no, it should not hurt. Nothing that we do when we're singing should hurt. And if it does, that's a sign to stop and change something. All right, my friends. So mostly been Q&A today, not a ton on music theory. However, I do have I did an hour-long lesson on music theory and I linked it in the video description. So you can take a look at that if you're like, I want more of that information. But we talked about the difference between pitch and rhythm, about the musical alphabet and the pitch letter. Sorry, I keep saying that. The numbers, the octave numbers, very important to understand. Um, so if you want, you can go to that other lesson to learn more about intervals, scales, chords, keys, um, all of that good stuff. But essentially, as a singer, what's important for you to know in the beginning, it's important for you to understand what the musical alphabet is and what those octave numbers are. So again, the musical alphabet goes from A to G and it starts over again at the next A. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The octave numbers start over at every C. So for example, C3, C3, D3, E3, F3, G3, A3, B3, C4, going on up to the next C, which is C5, going on up to the next C, which is C6. Um, so that's important for you to understand because your range, pitches that you sing, if you take a look at a song and you see the range of that song listed, that's going to be using the musical alphabet and using octave numbers. So important that you understand that. Alyssa's asking, what's your opinion on using auto tune not as a production tool, but as a tool for practicing staying on pitch? Alyssa, I haven't done that, so I can't speak to the utility of it. And by the way, we'll be in Q&A mode now, so any questions are welcome. Um, uh, since I haven't used it, I can't really speak to it. My my thought is if you're using auto tune as a chromatic tuner to visualize where your pitch is, I think that's a positive. I think, typically I'm giving advice to people who don't have access to auto tune or Melodyne. And so what I recommend for them is using an app like Vocal Pitch Monitor or even just a very simple online tuner like tuner.ninja and visualizing how close their voice is to that pitch that they're trying to sing. But I understand you could do the same thing with auto tune. So if that's the way that you're using it, I think that's a good idea. Um, Auto tune in general, it's just so widely used. It's just, industry standard at this point. Um, but as often as possible, I encourage people to listen to live performances, especially ones that have little discrepancies and imperfections, because the reality is no singer is pitch perfect. Even those with very very good intonation, there will be times where you're off a little bit, where you um, overshoot a note and sing sharp, and that's okay. It's normal. Um, anyways, Okay, Layla was saying, I really want to enroll in music school. What will I be learning there? How to play instruments, how to sing, music theory? What will I learn? Layla, give me more information. Do you mean a college for music? Do you mean a kind of like shorter program? For example, like in California and maybe other places, we have something called the Institute, and they have different programs, different tracks that you could be on. So actually, regardless of what you're asking about, whether it's something like it's just a music school like Musicians Institute or a college that you're going to for music, regardless, you're going to choose what you want to study. If it's at a college like I did, you're choosing a major that has, like any other major, a list of courses needed for graduation. When you go the, like, BA route like I did, you're also going to be doing, what's the word? What's the word? General eds, general education courses, with a BM or Bachelor of Music. Typically, it's a little bit more concentrated study. Um, but you would be choosing that. So maybe you choose vocal performance, maybe you choose music production, maybe you choose music business or composition or conducting. There's plenty of different majors that you can choose. So I would look into the different options that exist and then just look into those course requirements to see, all right, if I choose music performance, for example, versus music production, how much instruction will I be getting in singing and how much instruction in other things? Um, I, yeah, I can speak to my own experience, but really every school will be different and have different offerings. Um, yeah. Jonah was asking, what's the difference between humming and an NG sound? I think I'm doing it wrong because they sound equal. So, humming, your lips are closed. NG sound, the back of your tongue and your soft palate are touching. Mm. So, if you look in the mirror, you should see that the back of your tongue and your soft palate, or the top back of the roof of your mouth, is touching. If it's not, you're gonna start to sound like you're singing a vowel instead of that closed sound. So listen to the difference. Here's NG. Mm, ah, ah. So it starts to sound like you're just saying that's not the NG. And if you are unsure about what you're doing, then say the word sing and hold on to the end. Sing. And that closure that you feel, that's what you want. I like the NG because it has a little bit of, well, a lot of nasal resonance going on. And I like it because you can open your mouth, you can drop your jaw. You can adjust your mouth a little bit more easily than with a hum. You're a little bit limited with the hum. So I personally prefer the NG, but do what works for you. And Alyssa was asking, what were the websites or apps that you mentioned you recommend? So, where free things are concerned, vocal pitch monitor, excuse me, hiccup, vocal pitch monitor is one. And if you do want to pay for something ear training related, I have students who enjoy Earmaster. Um, Neither of these are an advertisement, just, researched and seen what seems to be good out there. Earmaster has different options. So there's, an app and I think a desktop version. Of course, see if there is a free trial for any of these things. Try it out before you commit to paying for it. But the nice thing about Earmaster that I understand is you're working on sight reading or sight singing, and you're being analyzed, so you're singing and it's analyzing your pitch to see, okay, are you actually singing this exercise correctly? Pitch monitor will also analyze your pitch, but it's not comparing it to something specific. So it'll show you, let's say you're intending to sing a scale And let's say you know what the pitches of that scale should be. So let's say we're singing an A major scale and I'm walking up from A to B to C sharp to D to E. If I know that, then Vocal Pitch Monitor will help me because I can see how close am I to A, B, C sharp, D, and E. But if I don't have that knowledge, I it won't be as useful of information for me. So there are a few other apps out there that I've tried in the past. Sing Sharp is one. Um, and then I think there was one called Learn to Sing or Perfect Pitch by Learn to Sing, something like that. And both of those kind of promise more than I feel like they ended up delivering. I mean, they're both free to download, so you can try them out first. And then they have different vocal exercises. And it's kind of like if you've ever played Rock Band or Guitar Hero, it's kind of in that style where you can visualize the melody. So, for example, it's like da, 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 and you see those little bars going by, and you also see your pitch in relation to those bars. Um, so, I think it has potential, but there might be something better out there. Um, Anyways, I haven't tried them all out, but in your Googling for, best ear training or sight reading apps for singers, you might find better ones out there. Um, Two worth looking into also are Chet app and Ella app. They're kind of, sister apps there. Chat app is the ear training component, and I think Ella is the sight reading component. I could have that backwards, but I think that's right. Um, Anyways, so those are worth looking into. Again, when you're using a chromatic tuner, it's it's helpful to show you how close you are to that pitch and like the center of the pitch, like how dead on are you, but it's more helpful if you know what the desired pitch you want to sing is. And if you don't know that, then you know, you might be dead center of a pitch that's wrong, right? You know? Okay, Layla saying, I'm in seventh grade in Bosnia, so there's a music academy actually, and there's lessons for solo singing and choir, how to play piano, guitar, musicology, and theory. There's a lot. Yeah, so Layla, maybe you can see, is there a specific track that you would consider going on, or are you signing up for these individual classes? I would say, um, for a singer, I mean, solo singing and choir would be great to do if you can. I'm a fan of learning an instrument as well. The nice thing about learning an instrument, especially piano, but guitar is great, ukulele is great because they're so portable. Um, the great thing about those are um, you're learning music theory at the same time, and it's very applicable. The reason piano is so great is because it's laid out in front of you. It's very clear. Like, we walked through the piano today and we were able to see the musical alphabet, and see the pitch, going from low to high so easily. The thing that gets lost on the guitar or the ukulele, any stringed instrument, is it's not as clear. People understand it and learn it, but it is not as clear as the piano. Um, NGC was saying, I never had an idea of notes. I always rely on how I sound. So it's from A to G, correct. And what about the numbers? So the octave numbers starts at 1 at the first C on the keyboard. And then that first octave, here's the second octave from here to here. And then the third octave, and then the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh. Technically, that last pitch that I played would be C8. I think this is a full-sized keyboard. I think so. I don't think I'm missing any pitches. Um, But yeah, the numbers, you don't need to worry about the numbers repeating in any way. It's just this is the first octave, the second, the third, the fourth, and so on. Whereas the musical alphabet does repeat. But once you're walking through in one single octave, that number is going to stay the same. So C3, D3, E3, F3, G3, A3, B3, and then C4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Yeah. All right, my friends. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thank you for your questions. I love your questions. And if you wanted more music theory content and got more or less of that than you wanted, then look at the links in the video description. Again, musictheory.net is great. Um, I did another live lesson. I also posted a shorter, it's not from me, it's from another teacher on YouTube, but I think he did a great job of just giving an overview of music theory for beginners. It's like 16 minutes. So check that out. I will see you next time. I look forward to it and have a good rest of your week. Bye bye.